Well, one of the most common causes of a cold is actually the acceleration of allergies that haven't been taken care of. And we know that that pollen gets so great in this season that it colors our cars green.
It's interesting. You go to different countries like that, the parasitic bacteria activity in our bodies, they're actually different from country to country and culture to culture and place to place. So when you get there, it might not make somebody there sick, but it will make you sick.
The standard American diet can create such a disruption in the GI lining. We know that 85% of the immune system is around the intestines in what's called the GALT.
Achiness, stuffiness, runny nose, coughing. What did I just describe? Well,
Sneezing,
symptoms of the common cold,
aching.
right? You know, it's like, there it is. These common cold type of virus that comes upon us can become more frequent than we want. And certainly there's things we can do to not only prevent those, which is the primary thing we should be doing, but also to deal with them if we do get that. So we're going to talk about those things today. And so let's dive into this first thing. What are some things that people can do from the prevention side of things?
Well, one of the most common causes of a cold is actually the acceleration of allergies that haven't been taken care of. And we know that that pollen gets so great in this season that it colors our cars green. And we're breathing in all of those allergens, and the nasal passages get stuffy and they get unable to drain and clear, and before you know it, you've got this thing called a common cold. So how do we prevent it? A very simple and easy solution is to maybe do a nasal rinse with something like silvercillin. It's going to be antiviral, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory to rinse the nose out on a daily basis. We can also use things like quercetin, which is a natural antihistamine that can help settle down those cells that produce histamine for you and cause all that bogginess in your nose. Those are just a couple. We can go on to even like vitamin D. Why is vitamin D so important in preventing common colds or at any time of the year?
Well, vitamin D is not really a vitamin at all, first of all. It's actually a hormone. It's made from cholesterol. Who knew, right? But the bottom line is D can help improve the immune system. D not only does that, but it helps make bone, it helps with brain, it helps with gut health, etc. Vitamin D, by the way, is commonly underdosed and probably inappropriately measured. We measure in bloodstreams as 25-hydroxy D measure, and fine. But the bottom line on that, when you look at that, most labs will say 30 or above, or 30 up to about 120 or 150, depending on what labs is sufficient. That's not sufficient, and you're not going to get sufficiency of vitamin D until you get up to about 50 on that, right? And that's going to take most people that are 12 years old and up, I kind of use that number, 5,000 international units or more. So 5,000 international units would be your minimum, right? The darker one's skin is, the more one needs. Now, sometimes vitamin D is measured in micrograms as well. So 5,000 international units equivalent of micrograms is 125 micrograms. You also mentioned quercetin. That's a big one. One of the things that I like using, and I pretty much use it on a daily basis because I like it, is something called C Plus BioFizz. It has vitamin C and quercetin in there, and I think that's outstanding. And you mentioned silvercillin. What we're talking about with that is colloidal silver. You know, you can drink it, you can spray it in your nostrils, you can spray it in your eyeballs. It ain't going to hurt you. You can wash your hands with it. That is a great, great thing as far as a preventive thing to do.
For example, I take a small amount with me when I'm flying on an airplane. I'll take it in my carry-on so that I can actually use it on my hands. Hand washing is still a very, very important thing to do. You want to have clean hands before you go about touching your face, especially if you're in a public place and you're using the restroom. Whoever's been in that restroom before you and you're touching, whether it's the toilet paper roll or the handles, you can easily get something on your hands and touch your face, and you can put that viral load right on your nose without you even knowing that you've done it. So keep your hands away from your face. If you're going to touch your face, make sure they've been properly cleaned and sanitized. And if you're opening a door, you might just want to open it with a paper towel so that, again, you don't get that bacterial load back on your hands, because we have this habit of touching our face, fiddling with our hair, our ears, our nose. If there's something dripping, of course, we're going to go after it with our hands. So we want our hands to be clean. Another thing that's really, really important is the thing we carry around with us every single day, all the time. And that is our cell phone. We've got to maybe be more mindful about disinfecting our phones or other utensils that we touch commonly.
Yeah, and it's funny, we're taught today to use to wipe our hands frequently with alcohol. I'm thinking to myself, why would we do that? Alcohol's a toxin. You got people that are bathing in toxins. Who advises that when you have something that's not toxic like silver? I mean, it's a no-brainer, but the cell phone's a big one. We put it down places, right? When you put it on a table and it's got moisture from your face or your face oils, it can actually pick some of that stuff up, right? It's in and out of your pocket all day. What else has been in your pocket? I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? So these are just normal precautions we need to be taking.
Yeah, so thank you for providing those little extra supplements that are really, really important to prevent a summer cold. A couple of other things we've talked about before is we want to make sure that we take time for relaxation. A system that's overstressed and under-rested, of course, is going to be predisposed to an illness.
Yeah, no question. And so you don't have to suffer from frequent colds. You just need to understand what all we've talked about. Go back and listen to this numerous times. Take some notes. Apply these steps, and you'll find yourself with a cold less often. And you'll probably find yourself with a place in time where, like we are, I can't really remember the last cold I had. That can be your life too, and we want that for you. So here's to your best health.
Going traveling overseas, what to watch for, and how to avoid.
All that coming right up. Our Kingdom Candy with a K again. 2 flavors. We got salted
Delicious.
caramel and peanut butter. These are great. I mean, they're
kind of like a complete meal.
yeah, they're 200 calories. People want to know that all the time, and not that we're worried about calories, but these things have great ingredients. They're not sweetened with sugars. They don't have those false sugars or fake sugars, artificial
They've got
sugars.
fiber in them.
They do. It's interesting. Salted caramel crunch is our newest flavor. We'll come up with some other stuff at some point, but those can bridge the gap of that sweet tooth craving. They're sweetened with monk fruit, and that's really, if you know what that is, it's not going to raise blood sugar.
It's really only 2 grams of sugar. I refer to it as the sweet without the cheat.
Any of these things out here are designed to be money-saving, nutrition-giving, and life-enhancing. And this is a big deal. So you'll find out, like thousands of other people did, that these things will help you live healthy longer.
Have you ever witnessed any miracles in your lives about anything that you would think of that could be along the same kind of line, if you had any kind of parallel with it?
I guess like my mom and I moving to the country. That was like a big gamble. We moved on the 4th of July, so our anniversary is coming up on moving here. And then that was a huge gamble that she took. I was 4, so I didn't realize what it was. But I don't think if we stayed in Hungary, I would be here right now making this movie. So I guess that's the closest in my life that I have to like kind of a miracle that I didn't know was going to happen?
For me, I actually, when I was like 5 or 6, something like that, I had some kind of disease with like my kidneys that is like super rare and they only study about in med school, but they never really saw a case. So I had it. So I had like doctors from all over like the States kind of coming in and looking at me.
Wow.
And I technically died for like 10 seconds. I flatlined.
Whoa.
Yeah, my mom went out to grab a Buzz Lightyear VHS that I really liked. And when she came back, it was like complete flatline. And I saw an angel that day, which is pretty crazy because the first thing I said to my mom apparently was that there was a really nice man with blonde hair and blue eyes, like saying it's okay.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's
I am
pretty crazy.
That's insane. And I'm also so glad I went first. I wouldn't have been able to top that. Wow. That's amazing.
Exploring biohacking, bioharmonizing, biosynergizing, stacking, resilience, or anti-fragility.
Start here. No gimmicks, just proven results. I remember a time when I traveled to the country of Mexico. Man, did I get ill. Some said you had Montezuma's revenge. All I know was diarrhea and headache and felt miserable. But travel illnesses are real. And indeed, there are specific ones that we need to be aware of. And also there's some things we can do to prevent those from happening. So let's really deal with this. We like to travel, so this is something that we've actually talked about before.
Well, and it is important to know what is endemic in the area that you're traveling to.
Right.
Now, Montezuma's revenge is a fancy term for travelers' diarrhea, and oftentimes that can come from contaminated food or water. And the water in the area is very important to ensure that you are drinking and even using clean water to brush your teeth with. Because if the faucets are not clean and clear on the backside, you can end up sick just with simply brushing your teeth.
Yeah, and we've had that happen before too, even ourselves. It can be something as eating fruit that's been washed in the native water, right? And it's certainly the greatest mistake people can make is brushing their teeth. So it's going to sound weird, but you take a bottle of water and you pour it on your toothbrush, right? And then you brush with that, and then you rinse it off with that, and you dry it off with a paper towel or a towel. But don't even rinse it off with that water because you're going to get sick. Now, it's interesting. You go to different countries like that, the parasitic bacteria activity in our bodies, they're actually different from country to country and culture to culture and place to place. So when you get there, it might not make somebody there sick, but it will make you sick. And they could come here, obviously, and get the same type of issue with that. So that's a good tip.
Well, and you oftentimes want to travel with the preventative measures in case you do get sick while you're overseas. And for Montezuma's revenge, that would be, of course, taking the appropriate antibiotic, perhaps Pepto-Bismol, or even something that can help calm the tummy, like a probiotic, so that if you're out of the country, you have some resources without having to go to a medical center while you're away. Other areas you may want to think about, some areas are full of mosquitoes.
Oh yeah, mosquitoes can bite you, and mosquitoes do what? They stick their little claws, grubby things into your blood, and they can go take that and deposit that in another person. Pretty neat. I thought about something while you were going through that I think is good for a preparatory thing, and it's right here. Immune support packs. Like this has a lot of the zinc and quercetin and A and C and D in it. So we created these things with the idea that people could do one of those things a day as a preventive, but you could even do 2 a day as sort of dealing with an acute infection. And we've had those work tremendously over the course of time. So as recently as a couple weeks ago, somebody was going abroad, and I said, okay, I want you to go 2 a day for a week, and then take enough with you 1 a day while you're there, and then when you get back, finish the rest out. And it worked great. No sickness.
I think that is brilliant, because even as we moved through the pandemic, this immune support pack was one of the tools that we used to get people who even had pneumonia back on track quicker, and they recovered faster taking the packets than those who did not.
Yeah, and probably a thing that we should discuss is the idea of vaccines. A lot of people have a weird connotation to that today, and fine, whatever. But when you talk about
We are
going to
not
another country,
anti-vaccine.
we're not. We've been very adamant about it. We are anti people not having the choice to make decisions. And then we're anti-judgment on people that do make decisions and get criticized by somebody else. It's your call, your life,
body.
do what you want, be informed. Informed consent is what you need. Informed, meaning look at all sides of the coin. Consent is yours, no one else's. And the bottom line is that sometimes the immunizations are good when you go to an area like some part of Africa might have something that's native there, that if you go, you're going to get infected. Everybody else has antibodies. You don't. So that's some of the benefits of immunization before you go to a place like that.
That's right. So you want to check with your health department and ensure what is endemic in the area and get immunized before you go. Or in cases like malaria, you will actually pre-treat with a certain antibiotic before you go, and for while you're there, and for a number of days upon your return. And of course, if your symptoms do not, if you get sick and your symptoms do not resolve within a week of coming home, make sure you reach out to your healthcare provider to ensure something is not still staying around.
Well, that's really, really, really good advice, because, like, here's the thing. We like to travel. You might like to travel. We don't need to travel in fear. We need to travel with preparation, travel with information, and travel with the knowledge to know what you need to do to prevent things. Start off by doing the basics, immune support packs, and then reach out and find out what sort of viruses or bacteria are present in the area endemically, and prepare accordingly. And then most importantly, when you travel, have a good time. Make some memories, but don't let your memories be sort of distracted with a bunch of sickness like Montezuma's Revenge. Maybe you don't have to have that. And I think that this will give you some really good, insightful information to travel safely and have a great time and take a lot of pictures. You can even send them to us if you want to. We'd love to see them.
Mast cell activation syndrome. Is it real, and why?
It's real, and we can show you how to prevent it. Up next.
Let's shine the spotlight on one of our star supplements.
The human body can make most of the types of fats it needs from other fats or raw materials, but not omega-3 fatty acids, also called omega-3 fats or N3 fats.
These are essential fats that the body must get from food.
Biomega 1000 provides a potent dose of omega-3 essential fatty acids sourced from a strategically placed fishing facility in the far South Pacific Ocean off the coast of Chile.
Each capsule delivers an impressive 1,000 milligrams of EPA and DHA, and the capsules also contain vitamin E. See the link below for a special offer, and remember, don't be fooled by cheap online knockoffs. Our flagship product is called Kingdom Fuel. Tell us a little bit about Kingdom Fuel and why it's so good.
We saw people struggling with the idea and concept of it's too expensive to eat healthy. So we thought, okay, that's the problem. let's find a solution. So we found a solution for $5 or under per meal, and that represented the birth of the idea of Kingdom Fuel. So Kingdom Fuel is organic pea protein. It's got greens and reds in it, so this is the phytonutrients from green plants and red plants that we all talk about. Eat your vegetables, right? It's also got vitamins and minerals in it, so it's got a complete complex of that. And it's got also soluble and insoluble fiber, which the difference between the two is profound. Soluble actually gathers moisture and makes you full, and the insoluble goes through the system and grabs things like damaged particles.
The body runs on nutrients, it doesn't run on medication. And Kingdom Fuel is a complete multivitamin and
Yep.
mineral. What on earth is this thing called mast cell activation syndrome? It seems to be becoming more common these days.
Well, it is. When you have these mast cells that are sort of up in upper respiratory area, stomach, GI tract, and they're really there, kind of as a protection mechanism, because when they get activated by something that sort of triggers them, they release these mediators. One of the main mediators we've heard of is histamine, because we take these antihistamines when we get this, this wheezy stuff, and it shuts that off. But when you have this mast cell activation syndrome that's perpetual, you kind of got to do some digging to figure out what is or what are the different things that are contributing to that, those mast cells releasing those mediators.
Well, oftentimes it can be the standard American diet. The standard American diet can create such a disruption in the GI lining. We know that 85% of the immune system is around the intestines in what's called the GALT, gut-associated lymphatic tissue, and the MALT, mucosa-associated lymphatic tissue. And these mast cells and all of these immune cells kind of hang out there and play guard, if you will. So the things that can be coming in from the standard American diet are like foreign. If that barrier gets a little bit leaky, we can see those mast cells upregulate and just absolutely go crazy.
Well, that's right. And think about this idea of mast cells. When they're pushing out that histamine comes up for a reason, right? It's trying to sort of stop something from proliferating. And so it's good, but if it keeps coming up and we don't get it knocked back down, those symptoms persist. One of the things that knocks it down is something called diamine oxidase, known as DAO, which is produced in the stomach. But gut dysfunction caused by the standard American diet knocks down the production of DAO, allowing histamine to come back up again. So it's fascinating. A lot of symptoms people have up in here because of mast cell activation syndrome really are rooted down here because of the standard American diet.
Well, if you think about anatomy and physiology, the gut is continuous with the respiratory mucosa. I mean, you can actually get from one place to the other with just drawing a line. You can get right there. So, of course, any mucous membrane is going to be aggravated by these substances, these cytokines, interleukins, specifically histamine, that cause all of the bogginess, the nasal dripping, the itching, the eye redness, just all of the agitation, the bloating, the cramping that can go on with mast cell activation syndrome.
Well, and here's the question that people often ask us: what is the trigger? What's triggering this? Well, it could be a lot of things, but one of the areas that we go to as far as kind of a first line, we will look at the diet, and we'll run what's called a dietary antigen test, meaning that we look at the top 88 foods that we consume in America, run them right at a person's system, and we're able to then determine by the results of that lab what is an allergy, what is a sensitivity, and how much inflammation is it causing. Therefore, it would give us insight as to what might be triggering those mast cells to release things like histamine.
And oftentimes individuals will come into the clinic and they've already been diagnosed with this thing called mast cell activation syndrome, which of course is different from mastocytosis. Mastocytosis is actually almost like a cancer or leukemia, if you will, where the mast cells are signaled to upregulate by an abnormality in the genes. So those mast cells kind of go crazy, which is different from mast cell activation syndrome, which has an inciting event that's occurred. Once we really hone in on that inciting event. Oftentimes, food, it can be infectious agents like mold illness, Lyme. Once we hone in on those, the object then is to control the inflammation in the system. We've got to find a way to turn that inflammation down and help the immune system turn itself down and keep from going so crazy and spinning out of control. And you mentioned diamine oxidase.
Yeah.
There's other things like quercetin.
Yep.
There's other ways that we can heal the leaky gut in the intestinal tract.
Well, totally, and even let's not forget vitamin C. You know, a lot of the times there's one little formula that we've used a lot. It's called C plus BioFizz. It's got both C and quercetin in it. We've used that one as kind of an antihistamine. Told people to take that at night. But this idea, and I appreciate you sharing the difference between the mastocytosis and the mast cell activation syndrome. But the bottom line is there's a way to fix this. Just like we've talked about other syndromes before. You know, we've had shows before on this idea of POTS, you know, the postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, right? We have these syndromes, we've got to stop like thinking that's the final answer or the end of the road. You can go back and determine what creates the symptoms that create that phenomenon or syndrome and fix it.
Yeah, you start to bolster the system up, strengthen where it's weak, and downregulate where it's actually overactive. And we've reached in these areas oftentimes to peptides as well. The thing that has worked most commonly is our anti-inflammatory nutritional protocol. And that's fresh and raw fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, good clean proteins. It's taking out all those inflammagens, the dyes, the additives, the preservatives. When you turn the label over on your food and you start to investigate that label and you can't understand it, do you think that your immune system can understand it? I mean, that's just something that we have done for years, and we forget that our body sees it all.
Well, that's true. And, you know, so a lot of these things that we talk about are common sense, but they're not practiced commonsensically. And sometimes even peptides like thymosin alpha-1, thymosin beta-4, those can help as well. But if you're out there, you have a loved one out there that is suffering literally from mast cell activation syndrome or their like, you want to get some help and use some of these tools that we talked about today, and those will indefinitely help you a little bit.
Let's shine the spotlight on one of our star supplements.
The human body can make most of the types of fats it needs from other fats or raw materials, but not omega-3 fatty acids, also called omega-3 fats or N3 fats.
These are essential fats that the body must get from food.
Biomega 1000 provides a potent dose of omega-3 essential fatty acids sourced from a strategically placed fishing facility in the far South Pacific Ocean off the coast of Chile.
Each capsule delivers an impressive 1,000 milligrams of EPA and DHA, and the capsules also contain vitamin E. See the link below for a special offer, and remember, don't be fooled by cheap online knockoffs.